It's time now for Upon Further Review, brought to you by Ogeechee Technical College, Education with Purpose, and by Dr. Lincoln Lippincott with the Sleep Apnea Center in Statesboro. And now, here they are, Josh Aubrey and Nate Hirsch.
And we're happy to welcome you in to another edition of Upon Further Review, along with Josh, part of the Statesboro Herald's online team. This is Nate. We're up top of ERA Hirsch Real Estate Team. During the summer months, we like to give you these special interviews. We've had the one running with Tom Kleinlein. And coming up today, we'll hear from Tyson Summers. And I thought, Josh, we'd have a nice, relaxed show talking about what Coach Summers said and perhaps talking about what's happened since we last taped the show. Coastal Carolina won a national championship. Cavs won the NBA. NBA players leaving to go everywhere, making a lot of money. But you'll know the day we taped this on
Thursday, July 7th.
There we go. And very quietly, nobody really had an inkling. They did a very good job of keeping this quiet.
I agree.
The NCAA Committee on Infractions handed down their notice to Georgia Southern earlier today.
It happened. I guess we got wind of it sometime around 10 or 11 that it was going to happen at 1 o'clock. And they had a teleconference with the NCAA. Not anyone from Georgia Southern. Still have not heard from Georgia Southern. And we've been told we will not hear from Georgia Southern, which is unfortunate, Nate. I bring you back in time to 1995 when it wasn't exactly the same, but it had to do with grades and it had to do with some malfeasances with grades, and it ended up with the firing of Frank Kearns, with Georgia Southern being very limited in scholarships and, in fact, being banned from the postseason.
And this doesn't come close.
No, but what I was going to get to in that, very different than this, was Bucky Wagner came out and
they did a big press conference. And I'm trying to remember
there was a press conference
when Jeff Price left. We had another incident then.
Exactly.
And I believe they did at least make an announcement of what was going on.
They did.
We were going to lose.
Frustrating in this respect, in my opinion, because Georgia Southern has not had somebody come out to at least address some of this. We don't know everything going on, but that makes it for speculation. So I'm sorry if you're watching this and you're in there at Georgia Southern, but you're forcing us to speculate. So anyway, that's some of what's going to happen.
And by the time you see this, most people will have read what happened. So we don't need to go embellish, or not embellish, but so much expound on what happened. I think everybody knows that the story starts in 13 and then continues into 14. No coaches were involved. The NCAA was very clear on that. And basically, the penalties, and again, what everybody's waiting to hear announced is the fact, is Georgia Southern going to have to vacate, forfeit any games?
There was one player involved in 2013. It looks as though that one player only played in one game, and it shouldn't affect anything, I would think, in 2013. The 2014 one sounds as though, timeline-wise, it happened in December. If it happened in December, it shouldn't affect the Sun Belt Championship that Georgia Southern played in that year. What it seems like might involve is the 2015 season where that same player played. We don't know how many games. We don't know if they played in the GoDaddy Bowl. And if that's the case, maybe you have to vacate the GoDaddy Bowl championship, which would be frustrating, tough to hear if you're a Georgia Southern fan, because it's the first ever bowl victory. I don't think the Sun Belt Championship's in question because of the timeline, but who knows? Maybe that might be the case too. We'll have to wait and see, because we have gotten no responses from Georgia Southern at this time.
At this time. So they have, again, as we tape, they have 15 days, by the way, to appeal the decision by the NCAA. And again, if you haven't, you can go online and read the whole report. It does detail it. Again, to me, as an outsider, again, looking in, I don't know how you control these things if your staff decides to make poor decisions.
unilateral decisions.
Right.
Now, the one thing I think that is worth noting is it looks as though Georgia Southern did know, or coaching staff knew between 2014 and 15 that this did happen with the other two players, and it looks as though they still allowed a player to play in the 2015 season. Again, we don't know how many games, if it was one or how many.
Part of it has to.
But if they did, to me, that's negligent on the coaching.
Part of it has to, when you read the report, has to do with the interpretation of how the NCAA spelled out certain things. So that's where Georgia Southern comes in here and says, well, we thought it was this, and now it's come
But
like
again,
this.
Nate, to me, it's a little frustrating from this standpoint. If this, in my opinion, if this happens at Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, or somewhere like that, there's a press conference. There ain't no getting around that. At Georgia Southern, to me, it's frustrating because they want to lump themselves in with that. But at times, when things like this happen, you ask for questions, you ask for answers, and you get, sorry, that's all we're going to do.
So hopefully that will actually change after we tape this, maybe, and
could.
We'll actually have somebody.
But the response says no further.
No further. Okay, so that's where we are with this.
Yep.
All right. Coming up on the show today, though, Josh did have a chance a couple of weeks ago to sit down with our head football coach at Georgia Southern, Tyson Summers, and that will be the body of the show today.
That's right.
We'll get to hear from him on a lot of topics.
Yep.
So that's what we basically want to cover today. Quick reminder, when you need legal advice in the Statesboro, Bullitt County area, we have the man for you to call on, and that is Lovett Bennett Jr., attorney at law PC. Lovett's office located in downtown Statesboro. We're back with more in a moment on Upon Further Review. The Medical Center Pharmacy on Grenade Street is proud to be your Health Mart pharmacy in Statesboro. The Medical Center Pharmacy, locally owned and serving this community for 50 years, is open 364 days a year. The pharmacists at Medical Center know there's nothing more important than your family's well-being. That's why they take the time to know their customers, explain their medications, and answer any questions. The Medical Center Pharmacy, your Health Mart pharmacy. Health Mart, caring for you and about you. Well, Josh, you had a chance to sit down with Tyson Summers. I should tell our audience this was right after you did your report about the field being a little warm. Won't get into that. But you did manage to cover a lot of the area with him.
That's right. Among other things that we talked about in this first segment was the big transition for him from being an assistant coach to being a head college football coach.
We've had our guys here for 5 or 6 weeks now with our guys in summer school, taking classes, going through the workouts with Coach Dorsey. I think they've done a really, really good job. Been excited about seeing those guys and the momentum they've tried to kind of carry through the fall and through the spring. For us as coaches, certainly been through here and been trying to do a lot of planning, get ahead for our opponents in the fall and trying to get ahead for camp, obviously. And then we've been having to do a lot of our own camps, with the satellite camps and the ones we've had on our own campus, and recruiting being what it is today is just it's a different element than it used to be in the summer, particularly in June. And it's an opportunity, we feel like, between unofficial visits and camp opportunities to really help what we're doing here in our brand at Georgia Southern.
Another thing that's kept you busy is going throughout the state on the caravan tour, trying to get your name out there and get, kind of your philosophy out there. How's that been?
It's been good. The caravans are a neat opportunity to interact with fans that you typically wouldn't have the opportunity to, outside of a spring game or a game day atmosphere. And so I do think it's a neat thing. Got to go all over the state and spend time with different people on our staff that I hadn't had necessarily a lot of time with some of the coaches from the other sports. I thought that was a great opportunity for that. But, it's neat to kind of hear the fans and what's things that are important and the questions that they have. And I think it's a good opportunity for me to be able to explain myself and how I think. I know when I go back and I talk to our team all the time, I try to talk to them about what is the intent, why are we doing this, and I certainly think I got an opportunity to do that while we did the caravans.
When you're going out and about and you're getting a lot of questions, I'm sure you're finding even though you've been here before, the passion for Georgia Southern football.
Yes, sir.
It can be a double-edged sword. It can be a good thing because they care, and it can be a bad thing because it's questions you keep getting asked over and over that may be a little redundant.
Well, sure. They are obviously a lot of their concerns are the same ones, and so that's interesting as you kind of go through it. But you know, the caravans, like I said, were a neat opportunity to answer some of those things, and some things, you know, like I said, just to be able to explain why. And so I do think that as we went through it and got an opportunity to be in front of everybody, some of those things got explained. I thought they went well. You know, maybe some people didn't think that, but I thought they went well. And so again, any opportunity that we have as coaches, particularly being the head coach, to be able to interact with those guys and talk to them about kind of where we're headed, where we see our future, and what we're trying to do, I think is a great opportunity.
This is your first chance to be a head college football coach.
Sure.
What's been the hardest thing for you that you've kind of maybe weren't ready for or underestimated what you would have to do?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me that's challenging is that, you know, as a position coach or as a coordinator, you go from having 15 guys in your position or coordinator where you have 50 guys, and you're trying to build relationships with those guys, because I think it becomes about trust and making sure the guys know how much you care about them. You know, sometimes that is tough love. Sometimes that's being able to have a guy that's a little bit more mature, and you're able to explain what you're doing on your side of the ball or your position, whatever it is. Sometimes it's about life, family, faith, whatever it is that you need to be able to have. Now, try to take that and do it with 125 people and still get your message across within your staff of what you're trying to do from an academic standpoint, a football standpoint, recruiting standpoint, weight room, and operations. And so that becomes the challenge, is the relationships that you got to try to build, in my opinion, with your players.
It also has to be tough to not have that control that maybe you did when you're only going 15 players or so deep. You have a lot more control over that as opposed to being a head coach. Have you found it hard to kind of let your coaches coach and not be out there as much in everybody's
No,
huddle?
you know, I think, again, I love to coach. And so I certainly think that there were times in the spring where I said, you know what, I'm gonna sit back in this period, and I'm gonna watch this or I'm gonna watch that. And sometimes I did, and sometimes I couldn't. What I did think was a really positive reaction is the opportunities that I took. And again, most of those were on special teams and on defense, and certainly had my opportunities on offense as well. But I got such good feedback from our players, and you know, I think they like me being around, seeing my passion, seeing how I communicate and how I teach. And so I think those were all positive things. But, you know, I've hired a great staff. I feel really good about them. And I'm certainly not going to be somebody that's not going to allow them to coach by any stretch of the imagination. I'm certainly going to have opinions. And at the end of the day, the buck certainly does stop here. But I want influences. I want opinions. It's one of the reasons I tried to go back and hire guys that had been athletic directors, 3 guys that had been former head coaches. I wanted to hear different ways to be able to do things. You can always go to places in your past and look at the way a certain coach did something here or there, but ultimately you've got to be able to find what's best for the place that you're at, you know. And I certainly think that we're doing a better job each day of figuring that out here at Georgia Southern.
Along those same lines, have you decided yet, as far as the play calling, the defense, the offense, how much of a say-so you're going to have in that? Or is that going to be maybe more wait and see?
Well, I think the big challenge for you is making sure that you've got the right menu each week, much more so than the play calling, so to speak. Knowing that you got the right plan, you've taken the right preparation, and I will be a huge part of that, I feel like, on all 3 sides of the ball. And so anyway, those are the things that are most important to me, making sure that our planning and our progress through the week is done in the right way so that it is a little bit easier to be a play caller.
Do you ever wonder what that 15% savings cost you in service?
What's the name on the account?
My name is Mary, M-A-R-Y.
Who is this?
Mary.
Oh,
My
okay.
name is Mary.
Right.
Are you even listening to me?
Sure.
At Glenn Davis Insurance, we get to know you as a person. To us, you're not just another number. Together with Auto Owners Insurance, we can develop an insurance plan tailored to your specific needs. Glenn Davis and Associates. Call or come by today.
Dr. Sergio Dalsenia of Family Internal Medicine reminds you that Kathy Shriver, who specializes in diabetes education and consultations, is now exclusive to Family Internal Medicine. Call for an appointment. Their office located in the Cotton Ridge Plaza on Fair Road. Well, I see you kept him interested at least through the first part. He wasn't still mad at you.
He wasn't. We're good.
Well,
at least I thought we were.
Anyway,
seems like we are.
In part two.
Part two, among other things, we talk about scheduling and this year's schedule coming up. Let's talk about the schedule. Your thoughts on this year's schedule? You didn't have much of a say-so in it. You look at it. What's your initial thoughts?
Well, I think you go back to like anything else. We're trying to make sure our ultimate goals are where they should be. Our goal every year is going to be to win the conference. That's got to be it. Our ultimate goal that we hope to achieve is also trying to get to, a December 31st, January 1st bowl game. That's where we're trying to head with our program. That's a big picture concept. But for us, the thing that we should be trying to achieve every year is to win our to win our conference and get into a bowl game. And, when I look at it again, there's certainly been a lot made about, some of the scheduling, but I certainly think opportunities for us from a branding standpoint, from a national media standpoint, those are great opportunities for us. And obviously having a network like ESPN that we feel like is going to be able to help us with that, and recruiting, and as we continue to grow, and, getting more sets than necessarily in Georgia or Florida or South Carolina, trying to get in front of a national audience as much as possible. I think those things can be positive for us.
Couple of Thursday night games. You got another midweek game that's a little different. Your philosophy on those midweek games, have you played many of them, and what are you going to do?
Well, I think one of the fortunate things coming from, a Colorado State, Central Florida, UAB, where you're kind of in the same world of the Sun Belt, Conference USA, Mountain West, American Conference. We've been in a lot of them, and certainly feel like we've been able to have success at places in the past and playing some of those midweek games and know kind of what we need to do to get ready. I certainly do think with the schedule the way it is set that we've got to be smart with how much we're doing with our guys' legs, obviously, and trying to get through a longer year that ultimately, while one of the Wednesday games with Arkansas State is certainly it's an open week, but it's not. You really go all the way to Thanksgiving without one. That's really my only concern of making sure that I do a great job of making sure that our kids' legs are up under them week in and week out.
You mentioned it. You go almost a month, or you go over a month without playing here at Paulson Stadium. Mm-hmm. Is that a concern, and is that something that you have to kind of plan for now as opposed to when it's upon you?
Well, I think that it's certainly a big picture idea. We've got to be, some of those things come back to making sure that we're being smart in preseason camp. What we're doing week 3 and week 4 before we ever get to Savannah State. Tried to go through and go ahead and put together that schedule, what we're doing through our season, when we're practicing, when we're taking days off. I went through about 10 different ones and trying to plan it out, and certainly feel like we've done that we've got the best one, talked to our players about it, and I know they feel good about it. So at the end of the day, we can find ways to make excuses for things, or we can find ways to find motivation. And I think that we're going to be able to find motivation in what we've got here with the schedule that we do. And there are some things on there that are really good. We do have longer times for some opponents than you would normally get.
There's kind of been a philosophy of whether it's more important to have people in the stands or possibly eyeballs on the screen with the ESPN games.
Sure.
On some of these midweek games. What's your philosophy?
Well, I think that there's certainly a happy medium. We certainly want our fans to feel good about being here, and those things come back to being, obviously Saturdays, and I know a lot of the fans would like for them to be later afternoon, early evening games in the same time, and that's part of the tradition here and part of the culture of a game day experience for our fans, and I think that those are positives. What you don't want to do is get into a situation to where you're so far one way or so far the other. We want to be able to be in a good balancing act where we can be on a national stage as much as possible without making our fan base be put in a situation where they don't have the opportunities they'd like to be able to have to be here at Paulson.
Tired of being tired? Do you start and end the day completely worn out? You may have obstructive sleep apnea. Dr. Lippincott at the Sleep Apnea Center in Statesboro can give you an evaluation and explain the new non-invasive procedure that has helped so many in our area. Call for an appointment or be on the lookout for one of our free seminars. The Sleep Apnea Center in Statesboro, part of Statesboro ENT, 120 South Zetterauer Avenue.
The Clubhouse in Statesboro, Southeast Georgia's best place to play. The Clubhouse in Statesboro, where fun is done.
And to wrap things up with Coach Summers.
Among the things we talked about was the Sun Belt implementing a championship game, which we were told was going to happen a few years back. It is on the horizon, still got another year. We talked to him about that. The Sun Belt is now going to have a championship and a championship game.
Sure.
Whether you like it or not, it's here.
Sure.
Your thoughts on that?
Well, I think, like anything else, the positives that you look at out of it certainly become, opportunities again to feel like with strength of schedule and opportunities in your league to be able to, again, what we're hoping for, what I think everybody in the Sun Belt and again Conference USA, the American Conference, Mountain West are trying to get to an Access Bowl. That's what we're all hoping for. You see opportunities in the past where other conferences haven't had championship games. It's hurt them for some opportunities they've had with bowls, and we certainly don't want to be left out of the mix when the opportunity arises for us. So I think that those are positives.
Do you think the Big 12 deciding that they were going to do it kind of forced the Sun Belt's hand in a way?
I wouldn't want to speak on the commissioner by any stretch of the imagination, but what I do think is that between the commissioners, the head coaches, and the athletic directors, that we've all made a decision that this is going to be the best thing for the league.
Speaking of athletic directors, your relationship with Tom Kleinlein, obviously he went through a lot to bring you here. What's your relationship like with him, and how important is it for you guys to be on the same page?
I think it's very important. Tom and I do have a good relationship. He's certainly somebody that's got a great football background, obviously a guy that played it in the ACC and then was able to spend time and be on a number of different staffs with a lot of success. And I think being able to be in that administrative role and to have somebody that does have that kind of background is a great person to be able to bounce ideas off of. He's certainly somebody that it's easy to communicate with, and somebody that has the same vision, the same goal. I think if you look at what he's been able to do here in the last 4 years that he's been here, and changes to facilities, changes in opportunities to game day experience, what a positive thing that it's been. Obviously the move to Division I, getting into the conference, changing Paulson Stadium, adding seats, adding our football operations center. How can you feel poor about anything to do with that? Because those are all positives for our program.
Anything on the horizon that you and Tom Kleinlein have spoken about that you'd like to see improvement-wise to football facilities?
Well, I think the thing that you look at is what a good job they've been able to do with the cosmetics here and what you're able to see here in the building. If you walk into our lobby area and you're able to look and see all the things that have happened in the tradition and the pride, I think it really stands out. And we've made some small adjustments here and there. They've all been things that are more positive for what we feel like organization as much as anything. But no, we feel good about what we've got, and I think that the Tom and the people who put this building together have done an outstanding job.
How early do you and your coaching staff start looking at game film of your opponents, and is it more Sun Belt related or just everybody's got a little bit that they take care of?
No, we've done kind of both. We've looked at certain opponents, even starting back into March and April and taking some time into looking at those things. And then certainly we've got 3 or 4 more teams that we need to spend a little bit more time with. Some of those guys have been assigned to those things kind of through their vacation. There's a little bit of time they get off. We leave them homework. And then, we'll still have some opportunities and some time when we get back as well. We'll get back and have 2 weeks prior to spring, prior to camp starting. And then really the 2 weeks after camp, you still got those opportunities as well. So we've got a lot of time ahead of us, but we started that as early as March or April.
We know how important your family is to you, which is why family medicine is so important to us. At TRICARE Family Medicine, we'll see that your family is in the best possible health. We offer a fun and friendly environment and are now accepting new pediatric and adult patients. Come experience the difference today. Let our family take care of your family at TRICARE Family Medicine, the official family practice of Georgia Southern Athletics.
Well, Josh, I think the key thing, he's got his answers to a lot of these questions. He's been to these caravans. I think, I don't want to say this in general, but a lot of the staff out there has the proper answer, let's say.
It seems as though they're falling in line with the way things are going with him. It's so up in the air. You could tell me Georgia Southern could win the Sun Belt this year, or you could tell me they could go 5-5. It's almost, to me, 5-6 or 6-7. Yeah. And so to me, it's almost like Willie Fritz's first year. You just don't know.
Right.
And there's so many questions to answer. As opposed to Willie Fritz being a head coach, though, Tyson's not been a head coach, so there's a lot of new things coming up. We've seen assistant coaches be quite successful, and we've seen them fail.
All right, hopefully this one is successful, and hopefully when we do our next show, we won't have any news on our quarterback to report either, or changes, since he said to you, no changes, I guess, for the players. Everybody's coming back.
Everybody's coming back.
All right, that's it.
That was what I was
That's where we are.
Correct.
All right, enjoy this one. Again, we'll start back in August. We'll have new shows as they get ready to practice. High school football will be here before you know it. We'll see you next time on Upon Further Review.
Join us again next time for Upon Further Review, brought to you in part by Ogeechee Technical College, Education with Purpose, and by Dr. Lincoln Lippincott with the Sleep Apnea Center in Statesboro.